Hi, my name is CJ and this is my RC channel. In this series of videos, I'm going to be assembling a Tamiya F104 Pro 2. This is a little, I wouldn't say it's exactly dated. It's not their newest Formula 1 offering. It has a lot more plastic and less carbon fiber. It's definitely less expensive, but I wanted to explore some low-cost racing options. And that's when I got started into the Euro truck racing using the Tamiya, again, the TT01E chassis. And I'm going to be doing a series of build videos on that as well. That is probably the least expensive way to get into RC racing with an all-wheel drive vehicle. The Formula 1, of course, is two-wheel drive. And this kind of runs up the price a bit, getting the ceramic bearings, but I thought I would go the extra and get those bearings. This is a Hobby Wing XE-Run, the XR10 speed control and censored motor package. This was $99. The kit itself is only about $194. I purchased mine through A-Main Hobbies, and the Pro 2 comes with the body, and it also comes with a pair of wheels and a pair of tires with inserts. And that's pretty rare for a kit. Very few kits come with tires as well. So that definitely brings the price down. It's a lot less items you need to order and spec out. You know, you can get up and running fairly quickly by buying this kit, getting yourself a motor ESC, and then you just need a servo. I went with a Savox Black Edition. This is the SC-125MG. I've had great luck with Savox servos in car racing. I've never had any problems with them. I've never had any servos get damaged or stripped out. So I've been going with Savox for quite a while now. I did decide to swap up bodies. The stock body that comes with this, I am going to go ahead and assemble at some point, but it involves a lot of extra work, and I'm suspecting weight. Let me just kind of go over this with you. You've got your initial body piece, and you have to cut away all of this gray area, which actually looks like some of this should be part of the body. These look like the faux air scoops and the lower pan that you would think would be there. Then you have to cut out these other pods and side scoops, which are then going to attach here. You've got a top scoop here, which you have to paint separately and cut out. You've got these little air vents here that you've got to cut out and mount ahead of the air scoops, these little vanes. Let's see, then you've got, see here where those vanes attach here in the front of the body. You've got these little air fins here, which have to be bolted onto the body. You know, and then of course you've got the driver. You've got to paint all of this. There's a lot of two-sided tape involved in mounting these various pieces to each other. It might make some stuff easier to paint as far as getting a really detailed paint job if that's what you're going for. But it just seems like a lot of extra work and potentially extra weight. And so, like I said, I am gonna build this body and paint it up at some point, but I wanted to get going quickly, and so I went with a body by Biddy Design. This is complete as is. You just trim it out along the body lines after you paint it. It comes with some stickers for things like just basic the air vents, the scoop behind the driver's head, more air vents, and the face mask for the driver's helmet, and the harness, racing harness for the driver in here. So that's all very nice and easy. You don't have, like 5 different panels that have to be trimmed, cut, and then attached to each other. All that overlapping plastic and two-sided tape and screws and everything else just adds a lot more weight to the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and do the Biddy Design body initially. And I've got a few other things to show you throughout this series. I've got some new tools that I'm going to demonstrate and see if they are as good as they are said to be. And since this is a Tamiya kit, I've got my Tamiya craft tool set. If you are building Tamiya kits, this is a great item to have. Tamiya's screws can be a little problematic for standard screwdrivers that you might get in the US. Number 2 Phillips head is not the same as a number 2 Phillips head in the Tamiya kits. So not stripping out the heads of your screws is important, and it's good to have the right set of tools. This set pretty much has everything you would need. So that's definitely a good way to go. You can order that from TamiyaUSA.com. So I've already done an unboxing video, so we're not gonna repeat any previous footage here. I'm just gonna jump right into the build and set aside the body section, and we're gonna go right in. And that's all basic boilerplate warnings. So step 1, we're going to be getting out our body panel, some posts, finding some hardware, trimming out the motor mount sections, and get going on this right away. Then we're going to move on to axle, diff, etc. I also picked up a set of ceramic bearings for the diff. They weren't very expensive. They haven't arrived yet. I've got several mod parts, so I'm going to do this in 2 series. I'm going to build the kit as is. The only modified part I'm going to add is the body. Then, oh, and of course the bearing set here. These just replace the stock bearings. Then I'm going to go back. I'm getting a set of aluminum side plates for the motor mount and the rear axle. A few other items, and the ceramic bearings for the diff, and that way I can compare the diff action with the standard bearings versus the ceramic bearings and see if they're really worth the $15 or $16 I paid for them, because they're not that expensive. They're just loose balls. It's not a, that sounds funny, they're just you know, spherical metal objects. They're not, you know, in a sealed you know, set like this, and so they're less expensive than getting a set like this. I'm sorry I don't have the price for this right off the top of my head. I'll get that for you for those that are interested. And so I've also got a carbon fiber axle, which was an upgrade. There's some very good deals if you are interested in this kit. You can get a lot of the upgrade parts from Tamiya USA. You can also get replacement parts. Things like the front end suspension, which is the most likely thing to break along with the front wing. That whole front assembly, top and bottom A-arms, hardware, spacers, mounting block, comes as one parts group, and it's about $6.50, $7 from Tamiya USA. If you order from rcmart.com and you've got the time to wait for that to be shipped from Hong Kong, that comes out to, it's only about $4. So I've picked up a couple of sets of front end parts just to have as spares. So if I do have a couple of crashes or you know, incidents that end up in breakage, I can fix the car, you know, on the spot at the track and get going again. And if you know, when I start running low on parts, I can just order more. That is one of the very nice things about these kits, is that all of the parts are available. And there's even some nice aftermarket offerings as well for the F104 and the F103. So let's get started on the build. Okay, just kind of sorting some stuff out, opening different bags. It's good to keep yourself organized. I use miscellaneous pieces of Tupperware that I scavenged from the kitchen, much to my wife's chagrin. Actually, she's pretty cool about stuff like this. In any event, you're going to find that some things aren't always where they say they're going to be. For example, we've got A here, as in like the A bag, but some of this stuff is in the A bag, some of it's in the B bag. You know, this is A bag of parts that is inside of the larger A bag, which has, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags at least, and several miscellaneous loose parts as well, like this piece, for example, which you would think would have been in the bag with these two pieces, but isn't. In any event, that's not a problem. Tamiya is very good about giving you a legend for each part, each you know, its size, and you can these are true to scale when it's the Tamiya printed. If you would run this off of a USB, you can't necessarily, you know, count on it. If you printed a PDF, and you're not necessarily going to get one-to-one, but when it's their directions that come with the kit, you can literally hold the screw up against the paper and go, okay, that's the screw I need, and you know, that's the part that I need, etc. So I don't recommend just like ripping everything open. You know, start small and you know, try to identify the bag in question. This is undoubtedly the bag that they are asking us to open, because it has 2 of 4 of these little pylons. These are nice gray anodized aluminum. They make blue ones as an aftermarket. I can't imagine why. It's not like the color of the anodizing is going to improve performance. So don't get caught up buying a pair of these in blue anodized. It would just be a waste of money. In any event, I'm going to go ahead and you know, pull out the screws and such that I'm going to need for this section here. There's some parts that have to be trimmed and identified. For example, in step 2, we're going to be using a bunch of parts off of this tree here. We're going to need this one. This is our rear plate where our wing mounts, and this one. So this panel will wait. That actually is, nope, that doesn't come into play immediately thereafter either. So now what I need to find is this piece right here, and that's another molded plastic piece. It's on a different tree. In some of my videos, I let you guys know what movies I'm watching while I'm working, because I generally have something playing in the background to entertain me during the build process. It's kind of interesting. Yesterday was the second race of the 2020 Formula-1 season, the second Austria race. It's Monday, and thanks to the wonder of DVR, I'm going to watch yesterday's race today, and it's already off to a good start. Well, for some, Ferrari is almost completely out of the race. The 2 Ferrari cars ran into each other, and one of them is already out, and Lewis Hamilton is leading with Max Verstappen right behind him. And so it looks like it's going to be an excellent race between the 2 of those guys. That is, if Red Bull doesn't have electric problems like they had last week. So we'll see how it goes. And Tamiya is really good at organizing their stuff because they sell these things separately. So this is the rear wing assembly. You've got side panels, you've got the main horizontal surfaces. It's adjustable. You've also includes the little side fins for the body. This is our front wing. It's got the nose piece and several adjustable vents that you can add or not, depending on what you want to get out of the front wing. As far as downforce goes, here's our front end clip. I talked about this earlier. I bought several of this item here. It also comes with some hardware, some screws and bolts. Here's all the different spacers, lower control arms, upper control arms, suspension block. This can be faced forward or backwards depending on how you want to adjust the suspension. That's also available as an aluminum part. Yeah, so that's, like I said, this is something that you might want to pick up a couple of. And this whole tree here through rcmart.com is $4. Now, I have no affiliation with any manufacturers. I'm not getting any money from anybody. These are all my opinions. I'm not getting paid to say any of this. I'm not even getting discounts to say any of this. You know, this is just how I like to race. When I buy a car and I'm planning on, you know, having it for a couple of years, I want to take it out, I want to race it, I know it's going to get banged up, I know it's going to take damage, and I try to prepare for that by buying the most breakable items and having some spares. You know, I don't buy the entire car over again, but I do get multiples of certain things that do break and that you're going to want to have on hand, because when you go to a local track, and even if it is affiliated with a hobby store and they carry parts from your manufacturer, those are several ifs right there, and if they have the part in question, you're going to pay a retail premium for that. So now ordering it from RC Mart means shipping from Hong Kong, which means expensive shipping. Not horribly, but it is a factor. And that's why I bought a handful of items all at one time, so they would ship, you know, as one box, one shipping charge, and again, keep that price nice and low. So this is a bunch of body parts on this tree. These are all things that go to the center chassis, and that is where we find that piece that I was mentioning. That is the D12, and D is going to refer to this parts tree's identifier. Let me just open this up and show you. All of these parts trees have like a little tag on them in one corner. Sometimes it's in the middle, but it's somewhere on the tree, and you'll see the D very clearly. I'm trying to get light on this for you. Right there. So you know this is the D tree. So these are D2. These are D1. These are D9, etc. So for these parts, I generally just use a pair of cutters and just trim them off. You know, try not to take unnecessary material. It's fairly easy to get a nice clean snip on them. And so there's the part that we need. And I can set the D tree aside till later when we need more parts. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off the pieces I need from here. I'm going to sort out the hardware I need based on the legend, and then I'm going to come back to you and assemble this. So I just want to give you some examples of things you want to watch out for. For example, these two are very similar in size, and it would be easy when you're needing to grab 5 or 6 of a certain size to let one that is a little longer slip in, and that's going to bottom out in a hole, and you might split the plastic or worse. And you know, or you might get away with putting it in, and then down the road you need a longer screw, you don't have it, and you don't know where you put it, and you've almost got to take the car apart trying to figure out where you put in a larger piece than was necessary. Here's another example of some screws that are very similar in length, and you know, it looks like it should be obvious when I've got 3 of them lined up next to each other, but when you're going off of the drawing, the middle one is what is needed, 4 of them, and you could easily pick up a small one by mistake or a larger one and grab 4 larger ones and misread what you see in the drawing if you do not compare it carefully. So, you know, things you should always watch out for. I want to also point out something about this kit. This is the V2 Pro. In other words, this has been through several iterations, and the original one was almost all plastic, and you know, with the exception of a few carbon pieces. the Pro 2 has a lot of upgrades. All of these blue anodized parts here, 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 all of these are things that were added in, and some other carbon pieces, some reinforced pieces for the front end that were deemed to be valuable enough, made a big enough improvement that it was worth including them in the kit to make a higher end package. And you'll see that throughout. You're going to see on the original, I have almost no doubt that these barrels here, these spacers, were probably plastic, and now they're anodized aluminum. Things like that, little bonuses that you're going to find in this Pro version, and things that make it, you know, definitely very well worth the $200, especially when you consider that most of the Formula 1 cars are in the $350 to $500 range. But let's just say 400 as a kind of a baseline average for the high-end car. Okay, you're not going to get tires. You may not even get wheels, and you may not get a body. Let's assume you get a body and wheels, no tires. Okay, tires are going to, that's $60 right there for 2 fronts and 2 rears with inserts. Okay, so right off the bat, you're talking $260 difference, not including tax. And if you're in Europe and you pay the VAT tax, that's even more. So let's just say the $260 difference. Okay, $260 buys a whole lot of spare parts and upgrade parts for this car. With that difference, I was able to buy servo, motor, and then that's still left $100 to buy spare parts. I've bought several sets of tires in different compounds to tinker with. I've purchased several different wings, front and rear. They're very inexpensive. And one of the really interesting things is that the rear wing mount for this older car is the same bolt pattern as X-ray, as any of the high-end F1 cars. So you can take a adjustable rear wing for an X-ray car, and they not only are adjustable, but they come in wide and regular widths. So you could get a wide one and get a tremendous amount of downforce compared to the stock one that comes with this kit. Also, their front wings are supposed to be really, really good, and they're very adjustable. They've got like 3 levels of adjustment for downforce. Those are going to bolt right onto the front of this car. So you have a lot of expandability, and at an initial $200 investment, that gives you a lot of latitude to take the car in whatever direction you want and spend your extra money wherever else you might want. You know, you're still going to need, you know, the servo, the receiver. You're going to need a transponder. So, you know, if you have an unlimited budget, you know, go for what you want. But if you're trying to start F1 on a budget, you could buy this car at $200, put in a $100 motor and ESC package, $40 to $60 for a servo, and you're racing. And at that point, you can, you know, upgrade things if you want to. You can just race it as it is for a season and wait till the following year to see if you're really into F1 and decide to spend up some more money. You've got all kinds of options available to you. You buy that high-end kit and decide F1 really isn't your cup of tea, or there's not a lot of people at your club who race F1, and then, you know, you've got a very expensive display piece on your shelf. So sometimes it's good to start with a slightly older model that's tried and true and has been developed over the years and doesn't come with the giant price tag. So now, don't get me wrong, I love X-ray products. I think they're really good. I would have loved to have spent the money on an X-ray, and I may down the road get myself a second car. And if I do, it probably would be the X-ray. But that's a big if, and there's a much larger price tag. If you've watched my videos, especially my videos on planes, I tend to accessorize to the level of the airplane or the kit. In other words, if I've got a $200 glider, I don't put in $200, $150 worth of servos. I buy $20 worth of micro servos and, get myself flying. If I buy a, $1,800 carbon fiber 4-meter glider, yes, I'm going to buy high-end servos. I'm going to buy the best battery packs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if I were to buy the $400 X-ray kit, I wouldn't just get the $100 ESC motor kit. I would buy a high-end programmable ESC. Not that this isn't programmable, it certainly is. But I would buy, like Tekin, or like the one I bought for the last one, the McLaren. And that's going to be double plus, maybe 300% difference in price for the, the motor and the ESC. Each might be in the realm of $150 versus $100 for both. And that wouldn't necessarily yield that much extra performance. It's more of if you're going to buy the high-end car, you get a high-end motor for it. That's the mentality, I guess. And so we're talking by the time you're done, and if you go buy the spares that I'm getting for this, you go down that same road, extra wheels and tires, extra front suspension parts, extra wings, then all of a sudden you're into $700-800, and that's a big difference than $300 plus another $64 in ESC plus maybe $50 in spares at most. So for the cost of the X-Ray, I'm getting a running car, several sets of tires, several different wings to tinker and tune with, and an extra body. So now I've got my stuff laid out here. Sorry if you don't like all the extra chat, if you don't want to hear, the price analysis, that's fine. Skip ahead. But I'm trying to gear this toward everybody, and that includes people who are new to the hobby, people who don't have a lot of experience. That's why I go very deep into the builds. I don't just go, okay, here's the rear end, now I'm going to screw this stuff together, and I'm 10 steps down the road when the video starts back up again. I try to show you as much as possible. For example, we're laid out here for steps 1 and 2, okay? Step 1 is going to be attaching this plate to this plate, and it goes underneath. So let me just slide these over. It is going to go right here, like that, okay? And we are going to be attaching this piece right here, and we're going to be installing it with an O-ring. Okay, we're not bolting in anything from behind at the moment. The O-ring right here is going to go in between the panel there and this plastic piece. Now, how tight do you make that? You don't want to crush it. Tamiya has a lot of things that require a measurement spec in their kits. You'll see stuff like this little blurb down here, and you need to be looking for these things. You want to tighten this down until 1 millimeter of screw is protruding through the top of the bolt. Okay? And that's a very important measurement. That's going to allow a certain amount of crush or compression onto that O-ring. And so, something, watch out for these little extra bits of information here. Now, if you notice, we've got 2 overlapping holes here and here, okay? And we're going to have one that has a bolt and a washer, right here, and the other one is going to have a post instead of the bolt. Then our second post is going to mount to this hole here. Now that seems very strange, but this has to do with down the road how this car goes together with the battery. It uses a longitudinally positioned standard size battery pack, not the shorties. You can't run shorties on this. As far as I know, there are no mods to accept shorties. So bear that in mind if you purchase this kit, that you want to buy the type of batteries that are used in most of the Tamiya kits, which is they almost look like a stick battery. You can get lipos, but let me go ahead and pull one for you. I was at the track yesterday and I haven't discharged these yet. That's something I need to do. And just another tip, a good way to make sure that your batteries last, get a charger that has the discharge option. I mean, not discharge, excuse me, storage option. Most of them have discharge as well. Mine certainly does. Storage discharges the battery to a specific voltage. I do not know that number off the top of my head, but it is considered a safe voltage for long-term storage. It's neither empty nor full. And anytime I race, I usually charge my batteries the night before. I may run it a balanced charge if it's been enough time, you know, before I plug the battery in, just top it off, make sure it's fully charged, in case it, you know, degraded over the evening and, you know, into the next morning. And then the day after, if not the night I get home, I take all of my batteries and I run them in storage mode. And that discharges, or if the battery's been run low, upcharges it to that safe zone of voltage, whatever that number is. Again, I'll get that number for you. But again, your charger knows what that number is. It's going to do it all for you. You just select storage and let it go, and it either discharges or charges balanced until it gets to that point. Now, again, this is the type of battery you're going to want for this car. And the reason you have this kind of offset thing, the battery is going to sit in here like this. It kind of rotates. You've got several panels that are here, and they're designed to rock sideways so that you can slide the battery out and then slide it in and center it. So bear that in mind. If you get this car, this is the battery pack you're going to want. I believe there's only one other that is of this same type. These are not overly expensive. They're in the $60 range, 5,000 milliamps with 100C. So that's a very nice discharge rate. It makes for a good race battery. I use these with my Euro truck cars for Euro truck racing, and they work great. I've never had any problems. You seem to provide lots of juice. Everybody at my club runs that same battery, and no one's had issues as far as I know. So, onward. Let me just pull these pieces aside for a moment. So, tools. And I'm going to break out some of my other tools as well. As much as the Tamiya tools are nice, I don't like having to switch back and forth all the time. In other words, you know, you can tighten a lot of things with these little handles here, but they are designed to plug into the larger handle, and unplugging and plugging frequently can be a bit of a pain. And since I have multiple loose specific wrenches or tools, I go ahead and use those most of the time. But I always, anytime there's a Phillips head on a Tamiya kit, that's what I use right there. Now, as you can see, you might be thinking, hey, wait a second, there's that bottom plate. You know, that's going to have a difference in height. One of them might catch on the ground. It's a cutaway. It's a thinner sheet, and there's a cutaway here, and it basically just locks it in place like that. I don't know what their methodology here is. I think it's to have some twist here and give you a little bit of rear end rotation there. It's kind of similar to the pan car suspension for things like 1/12 cars. If you're familiar with 1/12 cars, I did some of that back in the day. And you would have different tongues that you switch out to give you a different rear, a bit of a rear spring effect, and give you rotation at the rear. There we go. I was having a little trouble getting that started. Correct. Now I'm going to go back and tighten that again in a moment. I don't want to over tighten. Now, these are, oh, wait, no, I did the wrong one. My bad. I was not paying complete attention there while I was talking, and I used the wrong screw there, and I will explain what I did. And this is why you need to be very careful and pay attention to your plans. Just going to leave the bolt in the wrench. As I mentioned earlier, this section we have 3 screws that are 6 millimeter, or excuse me, 8 millimeter, and one that is 3x10. The 3x10 is the one that comes up through the bottom here with the O-ring to mount this piece. The 8s are used for this one with the bolt, and the other 2 locations with the post. Now, screwing these posts into place, this is a good time to use a shock shaft pliers. This is a pliers for shock shafts. It does not have normal teeth like a pliers does. It has rounded, smooth cutaways so that you can grab onto a shock shaft and hold it to attach eye heads and or ball cups and things like that without marring the surface. So on its large size, it should do okay to grip this in the middle without damaging it. Sorry, someone's ringing my front doorbell. Oh, UPS. Okay, I went ahead and screwed the second spacer in place, same way I did the first one over here. And so now it is time for the longer of the countersunk. This is the 3x10. That's going to go in here. And then we're going to put our O-ring onto that. And it's probably a good idea to go ahead and place this bolt ahead of time. It needs to be pressed into a hex fitting that's in the plastic here. So a good way to do that is to take something that is thinner than the hole, like this 2mm wrench here, and just set it through there, basically giving you a guide to keep the bolt, help keep it vertical, and then press it down into place with some other tool, just working your way around in a circle. Like that, until it is pressed into place. And remember, this is where we need to get a 1mm height of this bolt coming through the top of the nut here. Now, something I'm going to do here that is not in the instructions, but I think it's a good thing to do. I pressed that in fairly well, but I may not have seated it completely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the O-ring, because I don't want to crush the O-ring. And I'm going to screw this in. And I'm going to screw it all the way down until it's tight. And that makes sure that I have seated that nut into the plastic completely. Now I can unscrew it, put the O-ring in place, and get my measurement. Okay. This is a time when a good digital caliper comes in handy, but you could pretty much use a lot of other options. Small ruler, even some type of cheap caliper. Plastic caliper would do. So there's my measurement, and it's going to be hard to do there. But that looks close. It's hard to really gauge that because of how tight this space is. Kind of got to hold it next to it and eyeball. And I think I've got it pretty close. So as you can see, that's just having these almost touch, or actually touching the plastic, where there's going to be bolts that are going to come through there. Always turn these off when you're done with them so as to save the battery. Okay, our next step, we are going to bolt this rear cage together that has our motor mount and our axle holders. Now, one thing you can tell which way these are going to go, these elliptical sections here, these are for the axle height adjuster pieces, so you want this aperture facing outward to either side. So they should be like this, not like this. Okay, and our wing mount faces rearward. And let's see, is there a left or a right? Yes, this is kind of an oblong shape because of the differential. So our little open hole here, this little triangle, faces left like that, and there's a little key that mates these pieces together right in here. Oh, at least there is on that side. It felt like there was. Yeah, there's a little stop here that kind of orients it. So those are going to go together like that, and our rear plate is going to go together here with the 3 posts facing upwards. Okay, so this we're going to do. I'm not going to have you watch me do all of these bolts. Let me just go over what we have, though. We have 7 BA2s, which is a 3x10 round head, a button head. Okay, so there's 8 holes, 2, 2, 2, and 2. That mounts this into a cage like that, and then that'll get 4 countersunk screws from below. But we need 7 button heads, and we need 1 countersunk, which is this screw, and that is a 3x10. The 3x10 goes into this hole here, which is on the motor mount. This is the one with the motor mounted. This is where the pinion gear comes through. These are the 2 bolt holes for the motor, and it is the uppermost hole. It's also the only one that is drilled with a countersink, because there might be the drive gear for the ball differential is going to be in this area, so that's why the countersunk hole probably. So we have, see, I've already got one of those there. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7 button heads, 1 countersunk. So I'm going to go ahead and screw these together. For no reason in particular, I'm just going to start with the rear left corner and start putting this, screwing all these bolts in. Now, you're going to be driving these into fairly hard plastic, so be patient, and this is someplace you definitely want a good wrench. I would not, however, use a powered driver. I mean, you can do it if you want. I just think that when you're dealing with this kind of plastic, it's better to do it by hand and not risk splitting the plastic by, because if a motorized tool, you're going to go fast, and if you go fast, you're going to have friction, and friction builds heat, and heat makes plastic crack and get brittle. So it's not that hard to screw them in by hand. It's not such a big chore. As you can see, I've already done 2 of them. Don't over tighten. You just want them snug, because they can't loosen up. Plastic is better than Loctite, and you don't want to crush this piece or split it over tightening these bolts. So there's 1 corner already done while I was talking. I'm going to do the other 4 corners, and back in a second. Okay, rear section is together, and just note, make sure that you orient this piece properly. I spoke about this piece. Just like this piece, this is our wing mount, and that is going to be in the center of the car, so you can see that this is kind of offset. You can also see this plate is offset from the center, and that these 3 posts, which one would think are a center item or center line item, are also offset from this overall frame. That's because on one side we're basically going to have a wheel over here with not much next to it, and on this side we've got a big ball diff and drive gear and a pinion gear coming out of the motor. So that's why this assembly is off center. So now we're going to screw this to this plate, and that is simple enough. We are using 4 3x8mm countersunk screws, which I have laid out right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and screw this on. There's nothing really to this. So far the assembly is going very smoothly, very easily, no complaints. Now when you do this, I would recommend your first screw, go ahead and leave it a little loose. Get at least 2 or 3 screws, and once you've got all 4 of them in, start, torquing them down, making sure that this is centered on its plate. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.